Hi stamping friends, Melissa Kerman here with Melissa's Crafting Treehouse. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and I sell all the products that I share in my videos. The featured products today are the Strong and Beautiful stamp set and the Florentine die that you see right there. And I'm going to be showing you two versions of this card. Both are done with a watercolor wash, and I'm using three of the retiring in colors. Those are the 2017-19 in colors. The Fresh Fig on the left, Berry Burst in the middle, and Powder Pink on the right. So I'm creating a color palette or ink palette for myself in the inside well of each of these ink pads by putting a droplet in there. I like to put my watercolor paper onto a paper towel and have some extra paper towels off to the side, which will come in handy as you'll see. So when you do a watercolor wash, probably the most important tip is that your watercolor paper needs to be quite wet. So you can see I'm spraying it there with my spray bottle. Some of that was off camera, but definitely want this paper to be quite wet. So not only have I sprayed it, I've also taken my aqua painter and made it wet all over the surface. And then I'm going to start with my lightest color. So I've covered the whole surface with powder pink, and one at a time adding additional colors, and I'm doing it in sort of stripes on an angle, but you could do it any way that you want. So you can see that the ink is moving over the surface of the paper nicely, just blending, and it's important that it stays wet. So what I just did there is I squeezed some more water onto the paper, squeezing water out of the aqua painter, and I'll do that on several occasions throughout to help make sure it stays wet and to help the inks blend and move on the surface of the watercolor paper. So of course I'm just adding my different colors. You see I just added a little bit of squeeze of water there to help the inks blend, and I'm doing it again there. So, and I'm spraying it with my spray bottle as well. So now if you don't have enough water on there, the ink will sort of get stuck and you'll end up with sort of a dark blotch of ink that won't move around on the paper. That's not happening here because I do have quite a bit of water on the paper and I keep adding more water. So I'll just kind of keep working this until it gets to be the blend of colors and distribution of colors that I like. And you sometimes will see water pooling along the edges, and you can just tip the paper onto the paper towel and it will absorb the excess ink and water. You can also leave that pooling of water there and just kind of let it dry, and you'll end up with sort of a dark spot there if you choose. So as you can see, I'm continuing to just kind of fiddle and play, get the colors how I want them, adding more color here and there. After I'm done playing with my colors, I'm going to set that aside to dry. It does need to be completely dry to move on to the next step. And in the meantime, I'm going to start with stamping my sentiment on the front of the card. And again, we're using a sentiment from the Strong and Beautiful set, which I love. Now I've set it up on the Stamparatus because this is a club project, so I wanted to make the alignment super easy for people. And my people most often make two of each, so it just, again, makes it easy for them. So I've inked up my stamp and just stamping it on my powder pink piece of cardstock. And the sentiment is stamped in the Fresh Fig ink, and then of course I'm going to attach it to its Fresh Fig backing. And next I'm going to do my die cutting, so I'm bringing in my big shot right here and my magnetic platform, which is the easiest one to use. I love my magnetic platform because it holds the die and cardstock in place. So I'm using the Florentine Thinlet that coordinates with the Florentine Filigree stamp set. Now the cardstock that I've used is pretty much exactly the same size as the die itself, so I'm just placing it on there and running it through the big shot. I did have a cutting pad above and below the cardstock with the die, and then I'm going to take my die brush and just kind of help brush out all the excess pieces, and then you'll just pull the die piece of cardstock out of the die. So next I'm going to start with the assembly of my card. My watercolored piece is all dry, and don't the colors look so pretty? I love how this one came out. So in this case, I'm using glue dots, and I've put them in several places in behind this die. Now, when I put this together, I realized that by just using the glue dots, there were sort of areas where the cardstock piece was kind of sticking up a little bit. It wasn't totally flush with the watercolor paper, and so I wasn't 100% happy with that. So another alternative, and I did use this on the second card, is to use some multi-purpose liquid glue and just put the thinnest little line of it throughout the back of this piece of cardstock, the die cut piece. So now you can see I've put them in several places. I have to, in some cases, kind of roll them up so they don't show on the front side. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach it to my watercolor piece. Now I have adhesive on the back side, and I've already put that on there off camera, and I'm just going to attach it now to my Fresh Fig card base. So now, as I said, I saw some areas where I felt like the die cut piece was sticking up a little bit, so I took a couple of glue dots and kind of tucked them under to kind of hold it more flat. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach my sentiment, and I put dimensionals on the back side of the Fresh Fig sentiment piece. So after I attach the sentiment, I'm all done with this version. But as promised, I have a second version that I did that I want to share with you. So I have done another watercolor wash background piece off camera and allowed it to dry. And here you see it there. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to take my Versamark ink pad, I'm going to cover the entire surface, and then I'm going to heat emboss it with clear embossing powder. So I'm just covering the whole surface with embossing powder and then tapping off the excess. You can see I've watercolored both sides, just had to play. And then I'm bringing in my heat tool to heat the whole thing. You can see it start melting there. Now I've got the camera on super high speed. I just wanted you to see the transformation of this beautiful piece. I just love how the shininess brings out the gorgeous colors and textures in that watercolored piece. So now for this version, I definitely used the multipurpose liquid glue in behind to hold it down, and then of course continued with the other pieces. Now the sentiment piece was heat embossed with the Fresh Fig ink, and I used the method where you can heat emboss in any color just using clear embossing powder and your ink. I have resources on my website and YouTube channel showing you how to do that, and you'll find the details for where to find that information in my blog post for this project. So as I mentioned earlier, this was one of my club projects and is also one of the kits that you can get as a free card kit through my free card kit program. If you're interested in checking that out, there's a link in the video description below. Now the kits will include this die cut piece for the Florentine die, so you won't have to do that yourself. You will need to provide your own stamps, ink, and tools. I hope you've enjoyed my project today and will come back and visit me sometime soon. Plus, make sure to check out the video description below for lots of useful links, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and happy crafting!